People now more than ever are asking themselves the question, could my parents have done better? There's a focus on mental health like never before. And a lot of you are feeling like the first generation that actually cares about mental health. There isn't a lot of understanding from the people in your family because they don't have the same priorities of you. There's good and bad news with this. The good news is we are evolving. As a generation, we have a voice. We are coming together as a community and we are collectively learning knowledge faster than ever before. And there's so much information about how you can do better for yourself and how you can give yourself what you didn't have in your childhood. And if you decide to have kids, how you can break generational cycles of trauma that are going to end with you. But the bad news is it's really overwhelming and there's so much information out there. It brings up a lot of questions about your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your childhood self, and your relationship with your family now. A lot of you are naturally just going to feel numb to this overload of information. You are not alone. You cannot fix everything in one day. We're just going to figure out the next step together. We are going to figure out how can we make peace with what we know right now? How do we make peace with what we feel like we lacked? And how can we use it to foster and grow our relationships in the future? This can be really hard to go through by yourself, and you don't have to. There's so many people out there who may share a similar story to you, and we are coming together, and it is a really great thing. Feelings really easily can get hurt opening up conversations like this. The first few steps in my childhood journey were almost paralyzing. Learning all this information about the ways my parents could have done better in certain regards really made me feel like I was set up for failure. I attached my identity to someone who suffered from childhood trauma and didn't think that I was capable for anything else. And for a short while, I wasn't. I've spent lots of time and money in therapy. I have a lot of friends who've done the same things. I know how debilitating stage 1 can be. It's easy to feel discouraged when you see other people's parents consistently make good decisions, not because we don't love our parents and we don't care for our parents, but because we wish we were more set up for success. I remember seeing all the babies on TikTok learning how to cook, and it's so cute, but it made me really sad because I didn't learn how to cook until embarrassingly late, and I wasn't taught a lot of skills, and I had a lot of resentment for that. I was really frustrated because I felt so far behind people who could do daily tasks for themselves and they could provide for themselves, because it's not that we're just ooh booey hooey about not having everything in the world. It's about feeling systematically set back and like you had to really work for the steps that other people didn't even have to think about. Everyone in some way deals with the consequences of their parents' actions. It's natural to have some sort of frustration and confusion about where you feel like your needs weren't met. But the solution is in the problem. People are making good decisions. People are out here doing this for themselves. People are not only healing their childhood trauma, but setting a new standard for how we treat each other as people. Progress does exist, and we are in the midst of it, and we care so much, but that's why it feels so hard. Because it's so important to us, because this affected us deeply, because we're in a sea of emotions that existed generations and generations before we even got here. It is a lot to deal with in one moment, and some people can't do it. They get stuck at the reflection. It feels really icky and takes a lot of hard work sometimes to do. Some people aren't willing to do it, and then they deal with the effects of it years and years in the future, or just teach other people that this is a behavior that's okay to treat your children. Some people aren't brave enough to go through what you're going through right now. You're doing a really great job. I know some of you don't get to hear that. You're working really hard, and sometimes it could feel unseen because this is a lot of internal work that other people don't understand. Families are really complicated. This is speaking from my experience because I really want to give clarity to the people that are overwhelmed, people that really need to hear these words. Everyone's family is different, and there's so many layers and complications to family that are really personal. Just take what resonates with you. If you're watching this video and something really makes you feel, wonder why it makes you feel that way. Where does that come from? What does that mean to you? You don't have to listen to anything. If something does feel really strong, dig into that. How can you get more understanding for yourself? Because that's what all this is. As overwhelming as it can be, we are all just figuring out how we can understand ourselves better. And that is such a beautiful thing, to care for yourself enough to want to do that. You would be so surprised by how much you might be invalidating your own feelings. out of protection for your parents. I remember the interview with Jeanette McCurdy and Drew Barrymore after she released her book, I'm Glad My Mom Died. She did not have an easy childhood. She came from a lot of conflict from her mother, but she didn't feel comfortable with putting out the book until she died. Even after all the emotional trauma that she went through from her mom directly, she was still protective of her mom. It was just a really powerful moment. Remember, we are raised under the care of these people. Some people can't handle that they didn't do a good job as parents. They just can't physically handle it. They can't process it. It would be too big of a hit of their ego to be able to take accountability. But your feelings are still valid. Just because they aren't acknowledging you doesn't mean what you're going through isn't real. Whether you had a parent who met your physical needs but you felt distant from, or you had a parent who completely horribly traumatized you forever, there are a lot of parents out there who have made bad decisions and have made their child's life incredibly difficult, but they refuse to acknowledge it because of the hit to their ego. Those are the same parents who are going to subconsciously train you to not talk about them doing anything bad. No one wants to be the person that talks bad about their mom or is an ungrateful son or daughter. It does have an effect scientifically about how that child will become an adult. One thing that's really important about this whole process, and that is to have compassion. Compassion for your parents because they likely went through the same things that you went through. Or maybe they had their own sets of circumstances that you'll never understand that they don't want to share. Or maybe they just made all the wrong decisions and were reckless altogether. I think people inherently want to be good parents and want to see themselves as someone who does an amazing job. But sometimes they don't do amazing jobs, and you don't want to crush that reality for them. It's important to have compassion to where they're coming from. It's also easy to get caught up in the narratives and make a villain out of someone too. Have compassion for the sides of the story you may not see, and try to have an open conversation, because these things require work. But it should be you and your parent versus the problem, not you versus the other person. If you feel like you're putting in all the work and you're not getting anything back, have compassion for yourself. Ultimately, if it's between disappointing yourself and disappointing your parents, you should choose disappointing your parents every single time. I know that sounds insane to some of you. Simply not an option, but guess what? It is. You can disappoint your parents. If there's something that really is important to your mind, heart, and body and soul for you as a human being, and it is between you and your parents, you should choose yourself every single time. Because honestly, how can you ever be happy? If you are surrounding yourself with people who don't want to pick you, who will ever pick you? This is your experience. When you're feeling all this overwhelm and anxiety and disconnect from your childhood, the only place to go is inward and reflect. The part of you that's really, truly, deeply upset probably got hurt many, many years ago and might just be crying out for you to comfort them. You don't have to magically solve everything in your family today. You don't have to solve all of your relationships today, and you don't have to understand how to give someone a perfect mental health setup. Just try to have a little bit of compassion for yourself and love, and how you can show up for yourself more, and how you can choose yourself and make the better decision. This is the most overwhelming process in the journey, and it will take work and it will be hard, but it's hard because you care and you are giving yourself what you deserve. You are giving yourself what you have always wanted, and that is going to be worth it every single time. Be grateful for yourself because you are doing the damn thing. You deserve the world. Go and give it to yourself. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.